One of the things that made Sony great was its console exclusivity. They always put their games on their own platform and they didn't go anywhere else, mostly for the single player stuff. And they done that for decades basically. And now they started to dip their toe into the PC realm where some of the single player games were going to PC. And everybody thought it was a great thing. Me personally, I don't care. The games could go anywhere. I'll play them whenever. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, Sony was dipping their toe into PC gaming. Now it seems like they're probably backtracking on that, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this goes because of the fact that Sony is in somewhat of a bind when it comes to console generations because the PS6 may be delayed and the PS5 is doing very well, but it's not moving the needle as much. Maybe this is a situation where they're trying to move that needle so the PlayStation 5 could get more value and more people can get their hands on it. So let's talk about that and give you my thoughts and opinions. If this is your first time here, welcome. I talk about gaming and everything under the umbrella. And I try to go live pretty much 4 to 5 days out of the week. Hopefully, you guys will come through. I plan on going live later on this evening as of this recording, and you guys can come through and check out the content. All right, with that being said, now look, PlayStation has been one of the great companies, if not the greatest company when it comes to gaming and putting games on their platform, having a great ecosystem of games and value and community. When it all came back from the PlayStation 1 and it has been flourishing ever since. But with the times changing with things being blurred when it comes to console and PC, Sony decided to put some of their games on PC where it comes to God of War. I think there's some other games that are on there as well. I don't want to get into the whole names of the list of games that are on PC, but there's a handful of games from Sony, studios that are on PC. And everybody thought that this was going to be a profitable situation where everybody wins. Sony gets money, the gamers get to play games in different platforms, and it was going to be good for everyone. But apparently Sony is like, look, I think we're going to backtrack. We're going to go back to the console exclusivity mostly for our single player titles. Now, this is a move that I do understand. I could care less wherever the games are I want to play. It doesn't matter. The games could be on a Nintendo Switch. It doesn't really care for me. But I do understand where Sony's coming from. Their bread and butter is single player, story driven games that are exclusive only on their platform. That's one of the things that help Sony propel themselves, especially in the PlayStation 2 era, where a guy like me, when I was a big original Xbox fan, I always had this fond, these fond memories or this fond liking, or I just always wanted the PlayStation 2 regardless because the God of Wars of the world, the Gran Turismos of the world, Jack and Daxter, all of those games back then. And even when the PlayStation 3 came about, when we ended up getting Uncharted and other titles from that era, you could not deny what Sony was doing. Once the PlayStation 5, even some parts of the PS4 came about, and like a little bit after 2016, 2018 era, we started to hear rumblings about, Sony's doing this, moving games to PC. And it was a thing for a while. And it was cool. But I understand where this is going. Sony is going to be in a situation where, like, hey, we got to get some value back in our PS5. So this is an expected move for them to do, and I can see it happening where Sony's going to get back to this, and people they think that people going to get back and buy the PlayStation 5. Now, this is where I have a little bit of skepticism. I think the cat is somewhat out of the bag already. You're looking at a situation where a lot of these games that are exclusive to Sony, um, you want them to come out at some point. We don't know how many single player games that are coming out that are going to be locked to the PlayStation 5. Now, we already heard rumblings that Wolverine is going to be one of those games. They're going to put that game exclusively on the PS5 and it's never going to PC, where like Spider-Man end up going to PC. Now, does this help the cause for Sony? I think it does because you want people to have a reason to buy your console, regardless how we feel about these consoles or whatever the case may be. The consoles do sell at a loss, so you got to find a way to get as much as you can out of them. And one of the best ways to do it is have exclusive games. You look at Nintendo. Nintendo is like, hey, we don't care. We're not putting our games anywhere else. I mean, you had to um basically, beg and give Nintendo an ultimatum to put some of their games on mobile. And that right there wasn't something that I'm sure that they didn't want to do. Sony is kind of looking at that, in my opinion, that they're looking at it and say, hey, this may be the move that we have to uh get this together and put our games back on the console. Now, like I said, the cat's probably out of the bag. You look at what they're doing with games already, and you don't know what single player games they have coming out now, and it's been so stagnant with certain releases. You just don't know if it'll be viable at this point where what game is going to be a system seller, so you could double back and get a lot, because they're going to need a good bit of console sales to like kind of pick up where they were lacking. What console? What game they're gonna have? So so the consoles can actually move numbers again. Is Wolverine that game? Is it? I don't know. Maybe. The thing about it is, I don't think Wolverine has that appeal like Spider Man had. I mean, you gotta understand, Spider Man was a thing all the way back in the PlayStation 3, where you can look at the old fact PS3. It looked like it was complementing the Spider-Man games and movies back then. I mean, you can remember the fonts of the PlayStation 3 and the Spider-Man. I mean, you almost thought they were synonymous with each other. I don't think it's going to hit the same nowadays. I mean, that type of marketing is not really out there like that anymore. So when you look at other games that are possibly coming out later, um how does this work? And also you got to think about the RAM prices in the parts of prices to build consoles now. Does this help their case when the PS6 comes out? Is this something for the next 3 or 4 years they're just going to stick to and try to make a surge to have one of the top selling consoles ever? Because I mean, even though the PS5 is lacking behind the PS4, it's still doing great. But usually you will want your console to be better than the last one. This is kind of one of the situations that they had with the PlayStation 2. Well, the PlayStation 3, when it's compared to the PS2, they did not have that same success when you thought they were, the way everything was built. But pricing and economic times, all those things do play a factor in a lot of these console sales. And right now, the way the economy is, people look at tariffs from the government, and then you look at what's going on with the AI, arms race. It is not really looking that good for Sony, even if they decide to go back to console exclusivity. I don't know how that's going to work because like I don't know the numbers, but I'm pretty sure that the PlayStation 5 is still selling pretty well. But when you do look at everything that's around the gaming industry, I don't know if that's going to be enough. I mean, it seems like it's just going to be a push to try. And at the end of the day, that's what you want your companies to do, is to try to make value out of whatever they're trying to sell, regardless of the console wars or whatever we think it is. You never want a company to fall flat on their face when they're trying to provide you a service of gaming or any service. You don't want, if you like Burger King, you don't want Burger King to fall on the flat on his face if you like Burger King, or whatever it is, or whatever company that you're dealing with. You don't want that situation to be that way. So we're already looking at that with Xbox. Xbox is kind of going in an identity crisis, regardless of how I feel, anybody feel about Xbox. We could point and laugh at their, failures or whatever. You really don't want that to happen. You want everybody to be strong and be to a point where they can provide a great service for everybody. And Sony feel like this is maybe a way to do that. I think Sony is not in a bad position at all, but I don't know all the numbers that's behind closed doors either. But from face value, it seems like Sony's going strong, even with the PC releases. But I feel like this is what I think. Bottom line, I do think that Sony feels that they need to get more value out of their console because the next consoles are looking kind of bleak. We don't know what the PlayStation 6 could be entailed. What could it entail? We don't know what the PlayStation 6 is going to be like. I don't even think Sony knows. There's been rumors about this console generation being further along, And with that being said, this could be a reason why Sony is going to go back to the exclusivity, because if everything was peaches and cream and the PS6 was coming out next year, I think this PC movement will continue to move because everything will be on the up and up. This just shows me that everything is not really on the up and up, and they got to kind of hedge their bets on what they can do when it comes to keeping this console generation alive, because the next generation is not even looking very promising. You got to understand that with the arms race to AI is pretty much hollowing out everything else. I mean, we already know, look at NVIDIA. NVIDIA, we don't even know what we're going to get as far as graphics cards. AMD is being hush mouthed about it. Xbox is trying to do their console PC hybrid, and we don't know how that's going to play out. Steam has yet to tell us what type of pricing they're going to do on their Steam Deck, or I'm sorry, their Steam Box or their Steam Cube, whatever you want to call it. And Nintendo is probably trying to raise prices on their Switch too. So it's kind of all over the place. So the way I look at it now, I get it. I get what they're trying to do, and I'm not necessarily against it. I mean, I already have a PS5, so it doesn't really matter. But at the end of the day, this what kind of move this is going to be in the long run. I mean, I don't know. This is something that's going to be interesting to watch, and it's something that's going to pretty much shape how the rest of the industry is going to be, because you see Xbox doing their thing with their lack of exclusivity, and you just don't know. But Nintendo's always going to be exclusive in my opinion. I don't see them ever doing anything. But you guys, let me know what you think. I'm going to get up out of here. I will be going live later on. Hopefully, you guys come through and we can chat it up, and we'll talk about gaming. All right, y'all. Y'all take it easy, and y'all be blessed. Peace.